Hi, my name is Sage, and this week I wanted to make a paper mache mushroom, but I also wanted to make 3 little monsters. So I started doodling some, and these are the ones that I'm gonna go with. I then thought I could give them like little things to hold, but then I thought, you know what? Let's just make them celebrate the summer solstice and decorate the mushroom like they would. So I'm gonna do that instead. So now I'm gonna need some tin foil. I'm gonna roll it up hot dog style before then folding it hamburger style at the bottom of it as I'm making the base of the mushroom. Next, I crinkle even more tin foil at the base just to make sure that it's nice and sturdy, or at least that's what I'm thinking is gonna happen. So now that it's looking like a pointy wizard hat, I then move on to making the meat of the mushroom by crunching up another piece of tin foil into a ball and then covering it with even more tin foil and creating a circle. So now it's kind of looking like a flying saucer. And I continue to do that over and over and over again until finally it looks like this. Next, I take the hot glue and I hot glue them together, and then I'm like, you know what? Actually, this is a little bit off. I'm gonna rip them apart now. Before then trying a new method of hot gluing the underneath of the saucer first instead of the wizard hat. I then get distracted by all the little tinfoil flips at the bottom of the saucer. It's just looking a little rough, so I go in with the hot glue and hot glue everything down. And this is where I begin to notice that the top is significantly heavier than the bottom, which doesn't end well. So now it's just time to keep adding more and more tinfoil and more hot glue to the mushroom until finally I find an equilibrium. The only difference between what I did before and what I'm doing now is that I took such big pieces of tinfoil that it covered the entirety of the saucer as well as parts of the wizard hat to make where they connected a lot more stable. So it's not just the hot glue that's holding them there. Until finally, bam, it looks like this. So now that the mushroom structure is complete, I can then push that aside and start to work on the little monsters. And so I take some tin foil and fold it in on itself so it makes a small little rectangle shape. I then compare the size of the little rectangle shape to the mushroom and I like it. So now I'm just gonna add some clay, and this is the beginning of the tree monster. So I'm gonna give him a bit of an indent on the top of his head and then flaring the clay around it so it looks more like a tree trunk. And it would be such a shame if all of this was for nothing and I ended up ripping everything apart later. Damn, who said that? That's crazy. But first I take 2 little clay chunks and put them on each side of him for his feet, but don't get attached because they go too. But not until a lot later because I'm indecisive. And this is where I decide I'm gonna add a little bit more clay to him and also give him eyes and then take them away, and then I squish him, and then bam, it's the future and I am tearing him apart. And since he's ripped apart, now I gotta smooth him out. And since he's smooth now, I can now give him little twig arms, and I do that by making little logs out of some clay and then pushing them into his sides with my stylus, before then getting distracted and working on the top of his head by pulling up the clay by pinching it, as this will give it more of a tree trunk look. Next, I take my ball stylus and give him some eyes, and by eyes I mean just eye sockets because that's just the vibe that I was feeling. Next, I take my pointy stylus and carve lines up and down all over him to make him look more wooden, before then adding a little bit more clay on the top of his head and smushing it down because there was some tinfoil poking out. Then I jump back to working on his arms and I decide to give him some twigs on his branches, and I just put them in random spots just to make them look all nice and wooden. And to do that I use the pointy stylus to merge everything together. And now since he's done for the most part, I then place him aside and start to work on the second monster. And to do that I take some tin foil and I do it mostly off screen because I didn't realize the camera was pointed that way. But I make a T shape and then I cover it with clay, and this will be the rock monster. And to make a rock texture I do take my big ball stylus and I roll it everywhere before I take it and hit it really hard just in random places because, you know, rocks. Next I give him some eye sockets, and no eyes, just the sockets. Before then going back and using my ball stylus and I carve out some little leggies for him. Next I take a lump of clay before then taking my ball stylus and hitting it, as this will be his arm, and then I do that to the next one as well. And since I wasn't happy with the size of his eye sockets, I then make them bigger before then going in and giving him a little mouth. Ooh, and I carve it out with my pointy stylus. I then continue to use the pointy stylus and give him some cracks just in random areas because, you know, rocks. Then I decided his head was too long for some reason and squished it. And then I thought to myself, you know what this guy needs more of? Cracks. So I give him some more cracks everywhere, and then I place him aside as he is now done, and I move on to making the flower monster. And I do that by folding up some tin foil real quick, and then I make kind of like a ghosty shape, and then bam, it's covered in clay. So now I can start pinching the ends of the little ghosty shape, as it's gonna be like a bluebell, and these will be the little petals at the bottom of him, before then taking my ball stylus and kind of smoothing everything out. And then I give him his eye sockets as well. Ooh, and I do that by using a smaller ball stylus. Next, I pinch the ends of the flower petals just to give them more of a flower petal look. It would be crazy if I decided to change them later. But right now, I'm gonna give him a stem on his head by rolling a little piece of clay and then attach it by using the ball stylus. Next, I take other small pieces of clay and then put them up top of his head near the stem, as these will be the leaves. I make each leaf into a triangle shape so they're nice and tapered at the ends of them, and I give him 4 of them so he's nice and leafy. And this is where I realized that the flower petals on the bottom for his feet, they're looking a little thin, so I decided to thicken them up a little bit and also make them a little bit rounder because I'm just indecisive. And once I'm done that, he is now ready to be popped into the oven. But first, I have to fix little tree guy. His feet are annoying me, so instead of feet, he's getting roots. And just like the branches for his hands, the roots, I'm gonna give him some little offshoots so it looks all nice and rooty. And so now that he has his roots, his branches, he looks like a little wooden guy, he is now completely done. So now I get to make the little leaves. Ooh, and these leaves are gonna go on the mushroom and they're gonna be wrapped around, so it's gonna be like little garland. In my mind, these little monsters put up the garland, so I'm making them just like really simple and cute, you know? Like, oh, they found little leaves on the forest ground and they put them up to celebrate the summer solstice. And so now that they're all done and carved, they are now ready to be put into the oven. So now they can all go into the oven together, except for the mushroom, because I'm gonna be paper macheing that one. And speaking of paper mache, this is mine, and if you want to know the ingredients, they are in the description below. And the reason why I decided to choose like a pinky red was because I just thought that would be fun to use food dye in my paper mache, because then you can just see it easier on camera. And also, I do something different with this paper mache. I accidentally used hot water and mixed it with flour. That was my bad. I know better. I just didn't know that the water was gonna be hot when it came out. So it's a little goopy, but you know what? It worked. And speaking of goopy, I do end up taking some Bounty, not sponsored, and dabbing literally every part of the mushroom to try and get more of the mache out before then leaving it overnight. So it goes from this hot mess to this dried mess. Ooh, and all the monsters and leaves are baked and ready to be painted. But first, it's time to get out the beads and the fishing wire, as I'm gonna be adding some bead strings to the mushroom to make it look more festive. So I take the fishing wire and I make a knot at the end of it before then adding some beads to it, and I continue on doing this until I think it's the right length. And then I make numerous amounts more. I am very bad at counting. I don't want to count them. I just know I went with a vibe. And now it's time to paint, and I start with the little tree friend, and I paint him an umber brown color. Ooh, and I paint him twice, and this is what he looks like. I then move on to painting the rock monster, and for the colors that I use for him, I use black, white, and an umber brown because, you know, rocks. I'm just loading all the colors up on the exact same paintbrush and just hoping for the best. And I also use a cool silver color. It's nice and shiny, and I put that in the crevices and in his mouth because I just think that will make it look really cool and highlighted, before then taking the black and filling in his eye sockets. Next, I push him away so he can dry off screen, and now I'm going to be painting the flower monster. And since I pictured him as a bluebell, I paint him a light blue color, and then I fill in his eyes with black, before then skipping up to his leaves and his stem. I paint them both green, and now he gotta dry, so I push him off screen, and since I already had the green out, I paint the leaves green as well. And this was where I accidentally pressed the slow-mo button yet again. So this is me dramatically painting the base. It's brown, it's umber. It's umber brown. And the dramatics do not stop there. The slow-mo continues as I paint the tree monster's eyes. And what color am I using? Mars black. Gasp! I know! The drama. the revenge, the thrill of painting. Next, I do some touch-ups on the rock monster, just a little bit of color here and there, before then moving on to the mushroom. And I start by painting the stem white, before then going in with some yellow, so it's a nice mixture. I was Googling mushrooms, and there are so many to choose from, so I was really debating with myself if I should just go with white, or if I should go with yellow, or if I should go with both, or if I should go with none, and I just landed on this one because I know it looks good. I then use the exact same yellow-white mixture on the bottom of the UFO part, and then I put the mushroom away so it can dry, and now I'm back with the blue monster and leaves, and I repaint all of the leaves again, including the ones on his head. Ooh, and then get this. Okay, so this is the fishing wire, and I painted it green. I didn't think it would work, so I didn't even paint it on camera. But damn, it worked! And the fishing wire will be used later when I attach the leaves onto the mushroom. And speaking of mushroom, I paint the top of it red, and then I also use the yellow on the edges, so it's kind of like a yellowy orange on the edge, because that's just fun. And I'm noticing that this is gonna take a couple coats, so with the power of editing, well, bam, it's done. Next, I move on to using the Gorilla Glue, not sponsored, on the tips of the fishing wire with all the beads on them, and I glue them to the bottom of the UFO shape, and I continue that process with all of them until it looks like this. They look like they're fun decorations. I did notice that some of them had tails though, so I cut those off. And once the cutting is all done, I then move on to using the hot glue. So now I'm taking the green fishing wire that I painted and wrapping it around the mushroom stem and just hot gluing it in different areas so it stays, before then going in with the clay leaves and hot gluing them onto the green fishing wire so it looks like a little garland. And I do put them all over, so it's not just in the front, it's on the sides and on the back as well. And now that the mushroom is all decorated, it is now time to hot glue him to the base, and I glue the mushroom more towards the end of the base because I'm indecisive, and now I want all the monsters in front instead of two in the front and one on top the mushroom. And henceforth I begin my mission of gluing all the monsters down to the base. And next I glue the moths to the base, and that is this craft. I would like to say thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and now it's time for the glamour shots.